All right, hi everyone. Welcome to our November virtual second Saturday. We have a special evening tonight because we normally every November do a Veterans Day open house at Workhouse to coincide with our Workhouse Military in the Arts initiative. We decided not to do it this year for obvious reasons, the pandemic. We felt it wasn't safe. So we asked the WMAI program to join us tonight, and they did. So we are going to start off with our normal virtual second Saturday programming of talking to a few of the featured artists from the artist buildings on campus. And then I am going to turn the evening over to our art therapist, Alyssa Goggin, who is then going to introduce you to some members of the Creative First Responders exhibit that we have on campus right now, which is part of our program, part of our Workhouse Military in the Arts Initiative program. So just to tell you a little bit about Workhouse Art Center, if you're not familiar with it, we are an art center that is in the former DC Federal Penitentiary in Lorton, hence our name. Normally every second Saturday of the month, we have a second Saturday art walk, which is when we have the opening receptions for the new exhibits that are in each artist building. This year we've put it online so people can still enjoy the exhibits, even if they can't come to campus. So thank you for joining us tonight, and we're going to get going right away. And I'm going to go through each of the buildings and tell you a little bit about what shows we have going on campus right now. Our first building, W5, we don't have anyone with us tonight, but their show this month is called Inspired by Nature. It's a nice show, and it kind of works nicely with the exhibit we have in W16 that's called Colors of Fall. So please stop by campus if you have a chance to check it out. Our featured artist in W6 is with us tonight. Her name is Cheryl Vandermolen-Niwe. She is a fiber artist, and she's going to do something a little different for you tonight. She has a fashion show where she's going to show some of her pieces on models that are with us. Cheryl, please take it away and feel free to share your screen if you'd like.
Okay, thank you, Sharon. How do we do it? I don't know.
Share content, yeah, it's all already shared.
If you go down to the bottom of Zoom, you'll see that there's a share screen feature if you'd like to use that.
We're trying to find it, sorry.
That's all right.
I just see your name on the left and share content? No.
Share screen.
Sorry. Where's that at?
Maybe on the Zoom.
Yeah, these were things we were supposed to work out. Okay. So is it just a small screen for people right now?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So there's nothing coming up at the bottom for share screen?
What
is it
are
up at the top possibly?
Are you on your phone
Here,
or are you on your iPad?
Like, hi, we're on the iPad.
Okay, I'm not sure where it would be on the iPad.
That's all right. Why don't we just run it from the small square?
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, we can make it bigger.
Oh, how's that? Is that better?
Nope, still the small screen.
All right. Otherwise, we can do. I'm sorry, guys. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not there.
Well, hello, everybody. Happy Saturday.
Why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, so I've obviously never done this before, so I didn't know there was a thing I need to do here. Yeah. Great. That's perfect. I had a feeling something would go wrong because I'm not tech savvy. Sorry. So let's just do it the small screen. All right, Mark, go ahead.
Go, Sandy.
Yeah, special guest Martin. Yeah, Fuchsia and Indigo. Yeah. Nice, Anthony. Yeah, Mark. Good love to hear. Very nice. Oops, there's okay.
Oops.
Oops. Okay, who's on now, sir? Yay, Natalie. All right. Go, Jen. Yeah. Oh, the gorgeous come out. Woo! Yay! Looking good, Jade. All right, we're not done. Just song change here. Anthony. Ooh, Anthony looking good. Here we go.
There you go.
All right.
Come back, Anthony.
All right, Sandy. Yeah. Oh, that's so cute. Yay, Mark and Dina. They're together, so they can be less than 16. Yeah. All right, Courtney, looks good. Woo! All right, Karen. Karen's in the house. Uh-oh. Oh, I guess it's this. Oh.
All right. That's it? Is that it?
All right, that's it.
All
Yay!
right.
So Cheryl, everything looked.
Cheryl, they're talking to you.
There we go.
Ah,
that's the last one?
Okay, so how much time do we have?
You have a few minutes. You can have about 4 minutes. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your artwork, the pieces you're showing tonight.
Okay, so can I take my mask off?
Yeah, you can your voice. Okay.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm standing over here. So thank you so much. I actually want to say thank you to Sharon really quick and everybody here at the Workhouse. This place is such a magical gem here in Lauren. It's like Lucky Lauren. Like we are, you know, just it's just so special to have this huge campus of community of artists, people, being able to meet people, working here. I've grown so much as an artist here. I'm like unbelievably grateful for that in my journey here and everything I've been able to give back. I've received a lot and I've given a lot. I teach here. And so this collection is a lot to do with playing with different dye techniques. The hoodie I'm wearing here is ice dyed. And a lot of stuff you saw tonight was either ice dyed, there was some indigo blue in there, so there's some shibori technique, natural dyeing with avocado, eucalyptus. I like to play with everything. I mean, we didn't even bring out the costumes. Maybe that's next time. So, I don't know.
So
it's basically all wearable art for all ages. Of course, back in March and April when the pandemic hit, you know, I was supposed to have a featured art show then, and I just pivoted to making masks every day, all day long, maybe for a couple months. I was in my sewing room just, okay, we got to do this. So I was very happy to be able to do that. I'm glad I had the seamstress skills to do that. And then, you know, I had to get out of my house, so I started playing outside a little bit more, and then I would make the masks from scratch and then batik them and dye them. So it's just funny, 25 years plus of sewing, I never imagined that I would be making something for my face like this, but here we are, and we're in it together, we're fighting the good fight, and we'll make it through.
That's great. You know, this time last year, we were marveling at the mask you made for yourself for the gala that we had. And now this year, you've been making a whole different type of mask, but just as graceful a transition.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, it's amazing.
Great. So I know that when things started, you were making a lot of masks for friends who work in the medical fields. Are you still making a lot of masks for nurses, doctors, folks like that, or are you now making them more for fun?
I mean, yeah, my best friend of many years since high school, Liz, she's a nurse. I love her so much. And, you know, I got on the phone with her and we just realized what was going on. And I was like, oh my God, I need to make you masks. And so I sent her a bunch, and yeah, people just started kind of contacting me like, hey, are you making masks? I'm like, okay, yeah, I got to do this. So I just kept going with it. And I started, you know, I was giving them away at first and keeping them very low. But then when I realized how my whole life has transitioned into this, I'm like, okay, I'll just get paid a little bit for this. That's fine. And now, you know, they're like becoming part of our outfit. So I'm like matching them up with like stuff I make.
That's cool. That's cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight and having a fashion show. That was definitely something a little different and fun. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I thought if we were gonna do virtual, we might as well make it fun, right?
Yeah, I even love your lit up runway. Perfect.
Well, and you know, this is showing a lot of history here at the Workhouse, the arches. This is just such a gorgeous piece of our campus, and what better way to showcase it with the art running through it.
Yeah, I love it. Well, great. Thank you very much for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you to the Workhouse and everybody here. And all my models. Thank you to all my friends and my models. I can't tell you.
Yes, thank you so much.
So grateful for all the support. Thank you.
Night, Cheryl.
Okay, namaste.
Okay, so we have a few other buildings that also have some shows going on this month. Our featured artist in W7 is Catherine Lagacy. Catherine is a glass artist, and Glass House is a great place to stop by if you're looking for stocking stuffers or ornaments for your tree. That group, the glass artists, always have a ton of that kind of stuff out this time of year. In W8, our ceramics house, they have a group show going on right now that you can stop by and check out. And in W9, they also have a group show going on right now. For W10, we have a solo featured artist. Her name is Britt Connolly, and she's with us tonight. Hi, Britt.
Hi.
How you doing?
Great. How are you?
Good, thanks. I'm going to get going and share my screen so we can start looking at some of your work tonight. Now, also my musical tastes, I have to say, run a little more towards, say, Foo Fighters than for classical music. So if I'm butchering any of the composers' names, please correct me.
No worries.
All right, so Britt's first piece tonight is Karajan, and please tell us a little bit about this.
Yeah, so it's Carry On. I see, there it is. I'm just moving over. I can't really see there he is.
Yeah, you should be able to slide your screen over to the side.
Yep. So I just want to introduce the show real quick. So it's called The Conductor Envisioned. I went and listened to and watched a lot of different conductors, and I ended up with 20 that I really want to personify visually. The conducting is so interesting. Up until I started working on this show, I always listened to music in terms of the musicians and the quality of the sound that was coming towards my ear in a concert hall, and then envisioning what the composer intended and trying to sort of go toggle back and forth into what that experience was, and sort of going back into the brain of the composer and what I'm listening to at this very moment. And it wasn't until I worked on this project that I realized my entire life, even though I've been visualizing music and being in concert halls and had a big background in classical, I never really considered the conductor and what the conductor brings. So one of the interesting things was I really thought of conductors as the tempo makers, and I thought of them as, you know, they might, you know, they have influence. But after doing a lot of research, I realized it was as far from the truth as possible. So the conductors actually are like painters. So if the earth is the landscape, the conductor is the actual painter who has to determine what the landscape is going to be, so that the viewer can actually get the product and feel that landscape. So if you think of it in terms of a landscape painter has to decide when they're doing a landscape, is it the light that's the most important, or the color that's most important, or the textures, or the play of shapes between the trees and the background, or is it the aesthetic composition? There are a lot of different things, and you can't make everything highlighted or you end up with a big competing mess. And the same holds true in music. So I went and really researched each composer, watched a lot of time of them conducting and master classes and their interviews and discussions on conducting, and then tried to make an iconic single image that really had the feel of their philosophy, their motion, and their power, or their or the beauty of how they work in one image. So that's the background to the show, and it's been really wonderful. So carry on, and I'm actually going to look at my notes a little bit.
Okay, well, let me ask you really quick before we move on to the next one, since you can see so much motion in this piece. Were you basing it more, like, I know a lot of your prior pieces were based on the sound of a song or an album. Is this one based more on the motion, on the visuals of the conductor conducting?
Yeah, so instead of trying to do the physical motion of the tempo, what you normally see, I'm actually doing a personification of their whole style rolled into one, where you can say, wow, that's so him. Because each conductor has a whole physicality, a philosophy, an energy, and each of those, it's a three-part thing. So it's encompassing all three. So for this piece, I'll just read to you what I, how I went about it. So Carry On conducted with a great mental certitude, with his personal vision existing at its own force to be reckoned with. He wrangled sound onto a rope and hoisted it up to bolster an entirely new aural demands, creating new powerful experiences. I was memorized by the powerful and yet aesthetic design of his musical landscapes. The cool thing about Carry On is he is considered definitely one of the top 2-3 conductors ever. I mean, almost everybody. And he was controversial. He was conducting through World War II. He was a bit of a narcissist, very much so, really. But if you look at him conduct and you watch him speak and do his rehearsals, he literally goes into every orchestra thinking, you are going to be putty in my hands, and you're going to become the sound that I want you to become. So if the violins are starting with something and they're going, they'll say no, we're going to go hold that and slowly raise it, but do it all within the same exact time frame. And all of a sudden it's this powerful of, like it's not just dynamics, it's gait and all these things. And it would be in his head. He'd know in advance, and everyone would just be subservient to what he wanted. And he'd work everyone until suddenly the sound that you just couldn't imagine before is suddenly happening. So that's what he's known for, but just incredibly powerful. But also he designed his sounds throughout the whole piece, so they were like an art form in themselves. And I wanted to capture that. So this piece is aesthetically sound, and yet it's got his signature. It's got the way he operated and the way his baton flowed. So that's Carry On.
That is very cool.
Yeah, it was really a lot of fun. Dudamel is the next one. Dudamel, if you haven't seen him, go Google him. Dudamel, I think, is absolutely one of the greats. He's young, and the first time I heard him was in 2007. He brought the Bolivia Youth Orchestra to the BBC Proms. I only was able to see this on YouTube, but I'd never in my life heard music done in such a way. It's as if he took a piece I'd heard, a dozen times, and he literally morphed it into this sensual sound clarity and beautiful movement. Like even the players he had moving back and forth. So it's just like literally this all-inclusive engulfing of this sound. And I was just stunned, and I found myself just I had it on reboot and replaying it over and over. So this is my what I wrote about Dudamel. He's magnificent and refreshing. His work has only grown with his incredibly resonant mind. One gets a direct sense that he's determined to share the potential of oral assessment and all the sensuous shaping and gathering of sound, no matter how singular an instrument may be. He coddles us with sound and the clarity of its ebb and flow. We become engulfed with the resonance of that oral journey. You may not always be listening to the strict intent of the composer, but you will experience the height of what the composer's map can be. I particularly love this. The listener often has a true sense of what they just heard is only possible with him at the helm. It's no longer just about the piece, but what he can make the piece do upon our being. This is so true of him. Honestly, if you listen to, if you go Google it, anything he's conducting, you'll really be stunned because it's so different from anyone else. So Dudamel's a plus. You got to go see him.
And when you say he's young, he's still in his 30s, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
it's just remarkable. I mean, I watched him conduct, they're up and coming conductors that obviously work with the greats. So he has, everyone wants to have a workshop with him. And I watched him take 3 different people playing the same piece and work with what each individual person was bringing, and get that sound was completely different between them, even though he was there shaping it. He has this real philosophy that the musicians, you kind of have to let them become the greatest and most flexible and open they can be. I kind of think of it as a description of when you hear a singer and they have a tight throat versus when it's so fluid and open that it almost sounds like a chime, like it's this resonating
nice.
chime. He's
Yeah.
like that with humans and with sounds. It's
Well,
really unique.
You really get that off of this piece. It has a nice sensual flow to it.
Yeah, it's like he is making it happen, but yet there's all this room of everyone just being themselves. So Slatkin I grew up with. I mean, I don't know him, but I mean, he was with the NSO. He's been with everybody. Hugely famous. So anyone in classical has seen him at the helm many a times. He has an interesting combination of he supports a theatrical flair with the work that he's specifically working on, and a precision, but the precision is actually open. It's really interesting. He's very deliberate with his tempos, but it's very airy. It's as if he's very lightly defining the moment in these thin lines. And then he creates this vast depth, which is the middle part as he's doing this. That swath is it's like a vast depth of the instruments timbre, their life. It's like you really can hear the individual musician in terms of their musicianship. It's not so much a spiritual moment, it's more of a technically, like, this is what the sounds should be, and he's allowing the individual musicians to kind of be their best. So he's not domineering, he's not he doesn't put in the power, he's more of a rule maker where he says this is where you're going to be, and then within that he lets that activity happen. So very reserved in a sense. I love Leonard Slatkin, so
Nice.
yeah.
Nice. I can really you see both the airiness in the swoop and then the more structured in the lines. You did a great job with that.
Yeah, if you imagine a baton just, being the elegant but precise thing at the end, that's very much. So this is Dana Marsh.
Real quick, I'm going to interrupt you real quick before you do Marsh. Somebody asked if we can make the images larger. This is as big as they go. If you're seeing them small on your screen, please make sure you have zoom at full size on your screen. That should help blow them up a little.
Yeah, and also afterwards you can go to brittconley.com, and I have an exhibitions page. So you just click on exhibitions and all the works are there from the show, and you can click on them and they'll actually become bigger, and the descriptions will be there for each page, each image as well.
Yeah, once I'm done sharing screen, I'm going to pass on some contact info for both Cheryl and for Britt. So Britt, please tell us a little about Marsh.
Yeah, so Dana Marsh is really wonderful. He's the director over at the Bach Consort, who I absolutely love. They're phenomenal. If you they're in the Washington area, so highly recommend getting tickets when they're back. And they do have works that they're doing online because of COVID. They're just the most exceptional musical group. They're just incredible. Dana is a choral director, and basically he's doing a group ensemble, and often their voices as well. So he doesn't use a baton, and he has this really interesting foreground and background pattern where he pulls together different different timbres and just different sound shapes that are really subtle and thick and lovely, and yet highlight particular moments of different instruments. Um, when you watch him conduct, he's shaping everything individually with each hand, in such a way that I find it beautiful. And when I hear the impact of what he's doing, it's no surprise that the works are so incredible. He creates like this weave that's, it's this woven, lovely sound that you really don't hear with Bach very often. It's something he's bringing to it, and I don't know quite how to describe it, but I want to capture that with his hands and how he works that space, and he really has a definitive space he works in. All conductors do, but it's really interesting to see the nuance of how they coddle their space, how they communicate and why and when they burst out and how they function. So he's absolutely wonderful. So that's Dana Marsh.
Nice,
And
okay.
the final one I have is Georgiev. This one looks different from many of the others. I have a few in the show that really just look very different. This one, so Georgiev is really interesting. He played with the London Symphony Orchestra, the Munich Philharmonic. He worked with a lot of different orchestras. So I'm reading the write-up because I think I said it best actually when I wrote it out. Georgiev lived inside the subdivision. So what that means is if you have a 4/4 time, if there's a lot of things happening within that, he would actually physically shake with that sound. So he very much would, work the sound. He wouldn't just go, there's 4 sounds here and I'm just going to be here every 4. He egged his orchestra on with his gesticulations of nearly every finger, shaking his hands with a steady beat of a dancing percussionist. Each hand has its own personality and agenda. Later in life, Georgiev replaced his once short baton, which by the way was quite short, with his own pointed index finger, which is really funny because I first saw that, I was like, what? He made it work, and all eyes were on him and his finger and all the different, it's as though every finger had its own independence and its own agenda. It was doing its own thing, and I can't even emulate it. But when you watch it and you see the direct impact of the sound and what he's doing in every part of the orchestra, it's mind-bogglingly cool. So I wanted to capture the difference between those two hands, and also how they were each operating with their own thing. But also this interesting thing about, he'd take that baton and he would just take it around. And because it's so short, and also when he was just using his finger, even now while I'm doing this, I bet everybody's watching my finger. Imagine that at such a distance and everyone's just watching, because this is everything to him. So it's worth Googling, watching him conduct, and especially later when he is it's just his hands. So
we're real quick because we're running a little short on time, but I had a couple questions from an audience member who I think missed the beginning, and you stating that you were listening to music, but also watching videos of the conductors, and that you base these pieces more on the motion of the conductors than on the music. But they also wanted to know if you had limited yourself to a certain number of brush strokes. Can you explain a little your minimalism here?
Yeah, so one of the cool things about conducting is a lot of information happens in a short space. So imagine, 4 seconds or 10 seconds of someone conducting an orchestra. One of the, great conductors will have so many things happening in that short motion. They're not sitting there just keeping time. They're literally shaping and egging on and quieting down and bringing up over here. And they are determining what the sound experience is going to be, because they're as I mentioned before, the landscape painter. They're determining that texture is more important here, light is more important there, whatever's going on. So I really want to capture that iconic, massive amount of information in a single short moment. So each of these shapes actually represent a lot of information. The information may be how, they might swoop up general moments, but then within those moments, they're sharply attenuating certain specific items to come up, to go down, a lot of different things. And the way they use their baton, some people, they literally physically use their body differently, and they have a different philosophy. So these are a combination of the actual persona of the philosophy of each of the conductors, a combo of how they use the beat or the motion of the accent within the actual shape of how they're bringing in the energy. So there's 3 different things, and I'm trying to pull them into one iconic, simple, single, almost all of them are a single brush stroke. So trying to capture that, so it's not like here they're going like this, but actually, wow, out of thousands of times, what is the essence that really captures that, who they are, the
Nice.
soul of their approach. So that's why they're singular. They're, like I said, most of them are a single brushstroke.
And about how big are your pieces size wise? For
They're
the
all
ones for this show.
Yeah, they're all in 18 by 24 paper, but they're in frames that are about 36 inches by 20 or 30 inches. Yes, all of them were done on a pad of 18 by 24.
Oh, very cool. Well, before we say night to you tonight, I don't know where this picture came. It just appeared. This random lady buying your artwork. Britt is too modest to say this herself, but I wanted to throw this in there. This was a couple of years ago. This was about 2 years ago, correct?
Yeah.
Was the show called Musica, or was the piece of artwork she's buying, was that called Musica?
No, actually both. So the show was actually here at the Workhouse, titled Musica, and the piece is titled Musica. It's the piece is actually, you can see the piece it's on the homepage of my website, so it's the big image. The piece is about the Mozart moment. When I was growing up, a lot of people hear about how Mozart would have the entire piece in his head, and then he would pour it on to the staff, knowing what was happening in advance, sort of pull, carrying it around and then dumping it on and having this beautiful piece where a lot of people work piecemeal. They're like, oh, this sounds good, and this would happen. So I just kind of think of, I'm a bit of a humanist, so I love the concept of humans bringing the most extraordinary vision that they can muster for those idea, to make an idealized concept live in one fashion or another. So this piece is about the composer actually having that Mozart moment, and the beauty and the energy of what's inside their mind and their creativity flowing onto the staff all at once, but in its most idealized, beautiful form. So I was telling Jill Biden about the piece, and next thing I knew, she was buying it.
Well, I just wanted to brag on you a little, because I believe that's the first piece from a Workhouse artist that belongs to a about to be first lady. So
yeah, I'm hoping it goes to the White House. I don't know, but
too.
I was told it's in a place of honor in their home.
That's nice.
So
That kind of patronage is important to us artists. So Brett, thank you for being with us tonight. I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
You don't have any.
Okay, so that wraps
Oh,
up our
they're so
portion
hard to
of the Workhouse artists this evening. We're now going to move on to feature our Workhouse Military and the Arts Initiative. And I'm going to hand things over to Alyssa Goggin, who is our art therapist with the initiative. Alyssa, thanks for joining us tonight.
Yes, thank you so much. It is a great honor to be here and get to highlight the incredible work of some actually dear friends and colleagues of mine in the field. But like Sharon said, my name is Alyssa and I'm the art therapist for the Workhouse Military and the Arts Initiative. If you've not heard of this program, this is a grant-funded program that is housed at the Workhouse Art Center. And this provides free mental health services and fine arts engagement to service members and their families. My role is to provide individual and group art therapy as well.
It comes with drinks.
Gwen, could you please mute yourself, please?
Yeah.
Sorry,
It comes
I
with-
apologize.
Thank you. Okay, sorry, Alyssa, go ahead.
No problem. So our program, it's housed at the Workhouse, and I'm providing individual and group art therapy, as well as providing a weekly open studio, which allows service members to gather with their peers and then be in the studio space. And that is happening live every Saturday. And I'm glad that we can provide that at the moment as a space for veterans to get together and create in the studio. WMAI also offers a specialized ceramics and glass class for service members, and then subsidized classes for themselves and their family members to engage with other Workhouse Art Center classes and camps and other things that are happening. As you can tell, we have all these wonderful artists that are also teaching, and it is wonderful that our service members have the opportunity to take advantage of some of those classes. Like Sharon said, I have the honor of introducing to you 3 out of the 4 artists within our Creative First Responders show. This is currently on display in the Warrior Way studio, which is located in W16, and it is right outside our art therapy studio, the Warrior Way studio. This exhibit was put together by Deborah Bralescuri, which is the managing director of the WMAI program, and then the former art therapist, Jan Senya, who I had the honor of getting to meet before I transitioned into the role as the art therapist for the Workhouse Military and the Arts Initiative this August. And this show is very special to me, even though I did not have the opportunity to help jury and put it together. This show is highlighting the relationship between the art therapist and the patient, and sharing their artwork. Are 3 today with us, artist and art therapist, who are currently working with our service members. And I'm going to let them share more about their work and their thought process behind each of the pieces, as well as maybe being able to highlight what got them started in the field of art therapy or their passion for working with the military. And first, we have Jackie Jones, and I'm going to be sharing images from the show, but I'm going to let them kind of lead the discussion or what it is that they would like to share, and then being able in the chat to answer some questions, as well as provide their contact information and further details on their work. So Jackie, I'm going to share some images. Hang on one moment. Okay. Jackie, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Wonderful. Okay, I'm gonna share this.
Thank you, Alyssa.
Yes.
So I'm Jackie Jones. I'm a board certified art therapist, and I've been working with the military on bases with active duty service members for almost the past decade. In 2012, I was an intern at the National Intrepid Center of Excellence at Walter Reed, working with active duty service members in rehabilitative treatment for traumatic brain injury and psychological health conditions like post-traumatic stress. In 2013, with support from the National Endowment for the Arts, I established the art therapy program at NICO's first satellite setting, which was at Fort Belvoir Community Hospital, so right down the road from the Workhouse. And there I got to establish an art therapy program that grew into a larger creative arts therapies program, and got to work with service members in a outpatient setting, so for a longer period of time. And there, in addition to the clinical work, in addition to creating multiple tier program based on variety of needs and situations, I published papers and studied program evaluation and really looking at the unique value of art therapy within the interdisciplinary setting, and wrote chapters on complicated grief and disenfranchised grief. So got really interested in sharing more about the intersection between military and art therapy and grief psychology. And then in 2018, got the opportunity to go to Eglin Air Force Base in Florida, where I've been since. And there, I was there since before we even had a building for the program. So I got to be really involved with starting up the program there, and established and ran the art therapy and yoga and meditation programs for the active duty service members in that Invisible Wound Center as well. So that's a little bit about my background. I'm a civilian, so I haven't deployed myself, but in doing this work with service members, I've gotten to know, their stories, and also stories of places and other people from other countries well, intimately. And you wind up in art therapy. It's, in addition to the verbal story, you get to witness a large amount, because in addition to the verbal story, you have the visual depiction from the service member on what happened. And that's really like their soul's depiction, showing you not only what happened, but also the effect that various things have had on them. And then in addition to that, photos come into play. So videos are shared. So you have a lot of visuals. Objects are brought in. So you have energetics of things that have happened coming in as well. And then beyond just the stories of who you're working with, you also get to know, the names and the legacies, the stories, the photos, the faces of people they've served with, who, many of whom in the context of this treatment have either been killed in war or have taken their own lives since coming home. And then in addition to that, there's also, in the stories with the people you work with, you also get to learn a lot about locals and other people who you may not think of normally, but who have a profound impact on the service members that we wind up seeing in therapy. So in 2014, so this first image, the witness, I worked with a soldier in 2013 and 2014, and he was working through different traumatic experiences that happened for him in Afghanistan. And what gets suppressed with trauma is also the positives. And so a lot of the work that I was doing with him was he was focusing on reminiscing and nostalgia really from his time in Afghanistan. He painted a lot of landscapes to show how beautiful the landscape was there. And he created a lot of art about the Afghan people that he met and who had left a profound impact on him. He shared a photo with me of a group of kids that were sitting under a tree in a village during one of the meetings between the American soldiers and the community elders and all the locals of the village. And he took this picture because not really to capture the beauty of the people who he really admired. And then the photo wound up becoming even more significant because soon after that day there was a Taliban attack, and he believes that this particular girl didn't survive it. And so with that, I felt compelled to paint a portrait of this girl, and I asked if that would be okay with him, and he liked that idea. And so I painted this portrait of this Afghan girl, to really honor her, her existence and her long-lasting effect on him and many others. And in painting this portrait, during the process of that, also really allowed me to reflect on my role as witness as well, in a lot of the ways I just described, and that came up in a lot of the expression and expressive nature of this piece. And then so then I wanted to create a series of capturing portraits of people who may they may not be who you initially think of when you think of who's been affected by the war, but the people like that who really have these deep-seated places in the hearts of the people that I work with. And so then I was kind of, I wanted to do a series of this, but I wanted it to naturally unfold. Didn't want to force it. It had to feel right. It had to be the right context with what was coming on in the therapy, and with photos of particular people naturally being shared and having the rapport that felt like it would be right to do a portrait of a person. So then I worked with a Marine in 2016, 2017. And the bulk of our work was processing close to 70 deaths of comrades that he served with. And there was one person in particular who, when he was sharing about this comrade, his daughter was born while he was deployed, and he was getting ready to come home and meet her, and I believe he had one mission left, but he was actually killed in action during that mission, so he didn't get to come home and meet his daughter. And the service member that I worked with had this photo that he held near and dear of this girl who, here she's hugging the grave of her dad, who she didn't actually get to meet. And so this painting honors her, and so all of these images really capture people who were not directly involved in the conflicts themselves, but who have been profoundly, gravely impacted. And I'll end there, but any questions are welcome.
Thank you. I should first say thank you for sharing those stories and for being here to talk about your work. It's so important and very needed. And I just want to say thank you for being willing to share. And I think we do we have any questions, Sharon?
If anyone has a question, please feel free to take yourself off mute. In fact, Peter has a question. He says, is there a heart in the scarf? It looks like there's one. He wants to know if it's intentional. And then he also asked, on the grave, the flower seems to be a mini explosion. Was that intentional?
The heart and the scarf would be unintentional. That would have, that just happened naturally. And with the daddy's girl image next to the grave, there was a bouquet with balloons and flowers and all sorts of stuff in it. But as I was painting that, I allowed those items to be expressive in themselves. So that also kind of developed as the painting did.
Thanks. Does anybody else have any questions for Jackie?
I just really quickly wanted to say that this show meant a lot to me. So in my work as an art therapist, I've done a lot when it was, right therapeutically for clients to have their work shared. I just think that that's such an important part of the piece, and I got to play a role in curating shows. But it's not often that like, as art therapists, we actually do a ton of artwork processing everything that comes up, and so it was really an honor to have our work shown as well. So I really appreciated that.
Yes, yes. And I guess I have one final question for you is the relationship you have with these service members. You're creating that in a therapeutic space, and then these pieces that you have to hold on to. I'm sure there was a lot of emotion making the pieces and creating them. So being able to have them on display and share with others is kind of a vulnerable thing. And I think as art therapists, sharing our art, and especially process art, is, super vulnerable. I just think that's my word. And so being able to have that moment to reflect and honor that relationship and honor that part of yourself as an artist and sharing that with the community. How does that feel for you, knowing that that is on display and being able to share with others?
It's important. I mean, I think it's just super important to capture these other people who are really affected. And it is a huge part of our process and the kind of art that like you're saying vulnerable. When you were asking that question, I kept thinking you just want to do it justice. Like when thinking about what I would say tonight, I mean, I know the work I do, but you through the processing your own emotions is vulnerable, capturing people whose lives have made a really big impact on people that we've worked with really closely. You just really want to do it all justice. That's what I'm thinking.
Well, thank you for creating it. And then I think that just highlights the importance of this show and being able to have that space for people to come and see and know the power that's behind each work. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to share your contact information and information on the pieces in the chat. And Jackie has given information on her Instagram and her website and how to contact her if you have additional questions as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and next we have Jessica Herman. Jessica. Hi. Thank you for being here. I'm going to go ahead and bring up your artwork as well, and then have you share what you would like about your pieces and your practice, and we'll go from there. Okay.
All right.
We're ready for you.
So I am a board certified art therapist, and I work with active duty and veteran service members with traumatic brain injuries and other psychological health conditions. I work at the Intrepid Spirits Center at Fort Belvoir, where Jackie started the program. I am part of the Creative Forces NEA Military Healing Arts Network and employed by the Henry M. Jackson Foundation for the Advancement of Military Medicine. So I always tell my patients I'm not an art teacher, so I'm not going to teach you how to do art or grade your work. But there does come a time when I teach my patients how to paint, because it is therapeutically appropriate. So these times come when I may be trying to build a rapport or a therapeutic relationship with them, or that we may be in a stuck place in our work together. It may be beneficial for them to learn a new skill or have a step-by-step process to help them learn a new skill. So I have them choose a photo of a place that has a positive memory attached, or one that calms them. And I sit beside them and I show them how to paint it step by step. So when we are finished, we both have these acrylic landscape paintings. And for them, it's a representation of a place they learned how to paint and gain those skills. But it's also a place that's important to them that may come up in our work together later on as a safe place that they can use in imagery to calm and ground themselves. For me, I have these landscape paintings and they represent the work that I did with these patients in art therapy and the relationships that we built together. So I'm not really going to go into depth onto each one because I still feel as an art therapist, I want to kind of protect them and protect these places for them. They are my paintings, but they're their places. So I've titled them with their kind of like a blank for their name and then the place, like this is dock. The one before was, I think, beach, island, road, and woods. So this was actually the first one that I did with a patient. And it was really beneficial for him because we really had a hard time building that relationship just because of his symptoms that he was experienced from PTSD. And teaching him how to paint really opened him up. And he's still painting now. So. Any questions?
See, I wanted to ask, you make these pieces after that time together, or are these the pieces you're making during the therapy session?
These are the pieces that I make with them side by side. So I paint along with them. So I show them step by step, you know, this is how you kind of sketch out the landscape. This is how we're gonna do the horizon line, and it's step by step together so they can see it as we go.
Okay.
Kind of model this skill.
Do they ever have reactions to your version of the painting, something that speaks to them in your version that they didn't have from their version?
Sometimes they comment on my skill level. That can be a tricky part of it. But really, I'm trying to show them and help them learn. So our paintings often look different, but generally they're very similar.
And because I know the work as a fellow art therapist, maybe for those watching, what you're doing is something known as a directive and part of that therapy process. And I don't know, maybe if you want to talk a little bit more about that. I know you shared that these are all special places for the service members, but that there's an intention behind that directive being brought to the therapeutic time as well.
Yes. For service members that are diagnosed with post-traumatic stress, it's a common art therapy directive for us to do what we call a safe place. It's a place that they can imagine in their minds that they feel completely safe in. It could be a place they know or a place they imagine and come up with in their mind, but it helps to ground them. And they can go to this place when they need to feel grounded, which means they could be feeling a lot of anxiety. They could be having a panic attack or an anxiety attack, or dissociating, which is when you kind of have an out-of-body experience. So when those things happen, we often teach our patients certain tools or skills that they can use to help them feel like they're in the present, to help lower their anxiety levels and help them feel grounded.
And being able to have these pieces with them all the time, not only is it reminding them of something that they did themselves and were able to complete, but also has that attachment to a special and safe place for them.
Exactly.
I'm sure you hear a lot of, excitement of being able to represent this, something that they made. There's that part of it too. And you say that teaching and being able to teach them a skill and the fine art, but then at the end of the day, it's a piece that they made and can have on their wall or in a place that will remind them when they need that.
Exactly. It's very empowering for them, and it builds that confidence and self-esteem, but then also represents this place that's special to them or that calms them. So yeah, so wherever they choose to put it, it's a reminder for them.
Thank you. And I want to make sure I see. Andy asks, is there more therapeutic value if they have a plan when they start these pieces, or do you just let their imagination flow, then the pieces becomes?
So usually in art therapy, a lot of the work we do, it just flows and comes from your imagination. But for these, I have them come up with a plan because I'm trying to teach them the skill of painting. We start out with a photograph that we can look at for reference, so that they can really capture the place and learn how to use acrylics.
Okay. And then Peter asks, at what point in the process do you create the safe place? Is it early, mid, or late in treatment usually?
It can be at any point. For this particular directive, it sometimes comes at in the middle of our therapeutic process when we might be in kind of a stuck place, like we're not quite sure where we're going, or they're kind of resistive, kind of hard to having a trouble opening up and
he heard you.
trusting me. So it's another way that I also,
He's going to take every chance he can get, Russ.
Hey, Carol, could you please mute?
I'm sorry.
Thank you. Sorry, Jessica.
That's okay. Yep, so it can be at any point during our work together.
Well, does anyone have any other questions? I'm gonna make sure. Thank you so much for sharing. And again, that being able to kind of get a little piece of what that looks like, not only just the process of art therapy, but then having that reflection and memory for you after, to be able to honor that relationship and that time that you had with that service member.
Oh, thank you so much. No, it's a great opportunity to be able to show them, because otherwise they're just going to be sitting in my office. So this was an amazing opportunity. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. And last but not least, we have Peter Buette with us today, and I'm going to bring up his artwork. Peter, are you there?
Peter, you need to unmute yourself.
I got it.
Okay. Hi, Peter. I'm going to bring up some of your artwork.
Okay.
And then I'll let you
Do a quick
take
bio
me.
and then kind of an art statement.
Sure, that's great.
Yeah. All right. I'll just start whether the image is up or not. So I'm Peter Buette, also a board certified art therapist. And I have to say right up front, it's an honor to be showing with Brenda Maltz, Jesse, and especially Jackie, who trained me and strongly influenced me as I entered the field. So I have only 4 years in the field, and I'm currently at the Intrepid Spirit Traumatic Brain Injury Clinic at Fort Hood, Texas. And I've been there, like I say, since December 2016. So my intent is to always provide a safe, therapeutic, creative environment for active duty service members who have post-traumatic stress and or mild traumatic brain injury. So this is my second career. Previously, I completed 28 years of military service worldwide in the U.S. Army. And I have 8 tours overseas, of which 5 were combat zones. So I'm just glad to be here, first of all. I have a master's in professional studies in art therapy and a bachelor's in fine arts in studio art from the School of Visual Arts in New York City. I also have a master's in fine arts from the Maine College of Art in Portland, my home state. And finally, I was also an international Rotary scholar at the École des Beaux-Arts in Paris a number of years ago. So the artwork that you see up, let's see. So what I've submitted, or at least what was selected, were 2 aluminum-mounted digital photographs selected for this first responder show. These are preparation pieces that inform a larger series of digitally rendered sculptures. And I think I sent a third image along the way, and it's not in the show, but like I say, these photographs, these digital scans actually inform the sculptures that are made. So you probably have an opportunity to see that momentarily as well. So the artworks feature fellow U.S. combat veterans who have experienced traumatic brain injury and or post-traumatic stress. And of note, the 10 service members who participated in this project, I actually met them at the Warrior Transition Unit at Fort Belvoir a number of years ago. Stood in front of a formation of about 150 soldiers and simply asked, if you would like to pose as a sculpture, come see me after the formation. And like I say, 10 of them came forward, and I worked with the USO, and we were able to go to a site and have them scan. And so I like to say, of the service members who participated in the project, they have all voluntarily signed a release and were never in my patient line at any time. Now, as an art therapist, I have the privilege to encounter the invisible consequences of war in each and every art therapy session. As an artist, as a professional artist, this series intends to make visible those experiences of today's veteran who is in Iraq or Afghanistan from 2001 to the present. So like I said, I'm always looking for service members who have served in those 2 conflicts from those time frames on. And I myself went in Baghdad, Iraq in 2003, 2004, the Wild West, and also in 2008. So in another act of courage, these service members have come forward, and each one has selected a facial gesture to show that internal experience. So as in contrast to the response art that you see that Jesse and Jackie are making, I'm actually asking the service members to actually make a gesture themselves and make that gesture of that internal experience. So currently there are 8 sculptures in this sculpture series. And like I say, these are head or bust portraits, and there's more phases that follow. Next, I'm planning to seek and find burn survivors across the nation and have them pose and digitally scan them to create digital sculptures of them. The third phase of this sculpture series will be to seek out amputees and have them volunteer and take a pose. And at that point in time, we'll be kind of tackling classical Greek and Roman sculptures, maybe some Rodin, the thinker, and things like that, and have them replicate or come up with their own original gesture. And finally, the fourth phase of this series is to go back to Iraq, back to Baghdad, and encounter Iraqi veterans who are experiencing TBI, PTS, who are burn survivors, and also amputees. Encounter them, get their permission, scan them, and include those sculptures in the series as well. So this project embraces veterans of all services, ranks, genders, and heritages. And you can find more of these images on Facebook. All you have to do is look up Spirit of Survival. And that is the larger series of sculptures that I'm making. And that's what I've got for you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. I want to make sure, can you see currently right now the sculptures on the table?
Yeah, so each one of these is diligently researched. What you're seeing is a bust portrait that's a little larger, about 10% larger than life. Initially, they were digitally printed about 5 or 6 inches high, and then from there we made color corrections, making sure the center of balance was right. Researched the granite and found a 4x8 sheet from which we've been able to pull the sculptural bases. And also, those who have served would probably know what a pelican case is. This is typically how we transport arms and things like that. So each one of these sculptures has its own pelican case, and it may be difficult to see, but the foam in there is digitally cut out. So each sculpture will slide right in. And then there's also kind of a slot for each piece of granite to slide in there as well. So each travels in its pelican case. These pieces are currently on display as we speak for this upcoming month at the Cultural Activities Center in Temple, Texas. And as I was putting them on display, something really arrived, and I used the pelican cases as the sculptural base. So these sculptures are actually at the top of each pelican case as a sculpture base, and that was kind of something new that arrived.
Very cool.
I want to make sure I don't have any questions in the chat, but Peter, can you talk a little bit about your process for creating the digital prints that we have?
Yes. So, like I say, once the service member is scanned, and I think the second photo you might have shown, it's called a texture map. So it's literally taking all these photographs that have been taken, and they're digitally stitched together, if you will. So this texture map, and this is, like I say, it wasn't intended to be shown, but it's part of the process. And I'm like, this is really intriguing. And like I say, when I'm encountering fellow service members, kind of seems to really present what's happening on the interior. So that texture map informs the printing process as well to make it a 3D sculpture. There are two of these digital printers in the country. One is at the Smithsonian, and the other one, the one that I work with, is at an architectural firm in New York City. So they're always happy to see figurative work come through instead of like just maquettes of skyscrapers.
Peter, how long does it take to do one of these from the mapping to the process of actually printing it out?
Okay, so this is a years-long process for each one. Yeah. Now, in short, each piece is printed overnight, and it maxes out the capacity of the printer in and of itself. But from the meeting the troops, from the scan to the digital compilation, the post-production, the printing, to the the sculpture base, to the pelican case, I'm already 5 years into this project. But this is only the first phase, the invisible wounds. They're the wounds that we cannot see, and I'll get to the more visible ones later.
I love the way you've staged the process as well. That's incredible.
What can I say? Military, we work in phases all the time.
And I should say, Peter, thank you so much for your service and happy Veterans Day to you. Having someone that has served and now in the role of an art therapist, I'm sure now working with the military, how is that relationship for you? You know, you have your own service and now you're in the role of being able to help and support fellow service members.
Yeah, great question. I mean, I do disclose within the very first session that, hey, I served with you. I've got a couple different combat patches just like you do, and let's go. They don't need to know rank. They don't need to know my MOSs or specialties. And that's kind of an advantage sometimes. And they've verbally said that many times. I'm not telling my talk therapist. I'm not telling my psychiatrist. I'm only telling you, Pete. And I'm like, all right, you don't have to talk. Put in your artwork.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I think that's what is so special about our field is traditional talk therapy. While it's wonderful and it has a very important place, the art therapy allows the individual maybe not to say everything and have that safe place within the artwork to maybe say things or words or show images that they're not quite ready to process or say out loud. So I know being able to have kind of a third item in the room, the artwork, whether it can be a piece that is actually sharing exactly the emotion, the expression, being able to physically see that, or being able to create with line, shape, and color to kind of get that feeling and sensation, or being able to honor those things that are happening. I think that's what makes art therapy so unique.
Nonverbal is where it's at.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
I see one more question from Jesse. The sculptures, the material, like I say, it's almost like a photocopy machine printing one sheet at a time. And it's kind of a high density ceramic, believe it or not. Yep.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool.
It's quite fragile. They can break, and they have. But I think that's a kind of interesting metaphor too.
Yes. Well, does anyone else has any questions for Peter? We'll put them in the chat, or any of the rest of our Creative Forces and Creative First Responder art therapists. Please go ahead and put them in the chat. And I just want to say thank you for you all being here and for what you're doing. It is an honor to be your colleague in the field of art therapy and to know that you all are providing such wonderful care to our service members. So thank you so much. And also for sharing your work at the Workhouse. It is on display for 2 more days. So if you want to come to the Workhouse tomorrow, make sure you check that out. It is online if you're not able to be there in person. But then otherwise, I will put additional information in the chat so you can connect with the 3 artists. And then Sharon, I didn't know if you wanted me to wrap up by just sharing what Workhouse Military and the Arts has going on for the next few weeks.
Yeah, please do.
Okay. So I also have, or I believe had on the line, my intern, Chelsea. She is a GW art therapy student, and she is joining me for the next few months. As I have shared, I am new to the WMAI program. And with that, we are kind of adding and changing and switching some things up. So we have, again, our weekly open studio that happens every Saturday. We will not meet the week of Thanksgiving or the week of Christmas or New Year's, but we'll still have open studio from 12 to 3 every Saturday. We ask that you sign up for COVID times and being able to be prepared for how many participants we have in each week. There's a max of 6 at this time. And then also we have added a military dependence group. So every Thursday we are providing an open studio for teens aged 12 to 18 to be able to come and kind of have engagement with their peers here in Northern Virginia, all most of our schools are completely virtual. So being able to gather with other teens that are in military families and being able to create with peers and in the art studio is really exciting, and just got started 2 weeks ago. So look for that on our Facebook page. And then in the spring, we are going to begin a spouse group. So that is something we will share a little bit more about on our Facebook page in the upcoming weeks, but will be for active duty spouses of active duty service members to be able to come and create with their fellow spouses in the Northern Virginia area.
Thanks for sharing, Alyssa. I appreciate it. I want to thank everybody who joined us tonight, the Workhouse artists, the creative first responders, and all the audience tonight. We are not going to have a December virtual second Saturday because we are having our Winterfest event on campus, but please join us on December 19th when we will be featuring one of our Workhouse artists, Gwen Bragg, and a number of our student and faculty members on campus for an opening reception of that exhibit. Thanks everyone for joining us. I appreciate it. Have a good rest of your weekend.
Thank you so much.
And thank you to Alyssa.
Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, good night, everyone.